Well, well, well. There you are again. The anomaly they couldn't predict. The silence in the room that makes weak souls start fidgeting with their own thoughts. Come closer. Don't blink, because what you're about to hear is the exact reason they've been losing sleep while pretending not to notice you. You think it was the money, the glow-up, the cold stare, the success. No, 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 no. That's what amateurs think. The thing that shattered them, the thing that cracked their inflated little egos like cheap glass, was the moment you stopped reacting. That was it. One thing, one microscopic shift in your behavior. Silence. And suddenly their entire psychological empire collapsed under its own weight. You want to know why? Because people can survive your anger. They can survive your sadness. They can survive your desperation. Hell. They can even survive your hatred. But your indifference, oh, that's the apocalypse. That's the part nobody prepares for. Because when you stop reacting, people are forced to react to themselves. And most people, they can't survive 5 seconds alone with who they really are. See, they built their identity around controlling your emotions. That was their drug. Your attention, your pain, your explanations, your paragraphs, your need to be understood. That's how they fed their ego. Every time you defended yourself, they felt powerful. Every time you chased closure, they felt important. Every time you tried to prove your worth, they sat on their imaginary throne, thinking they owned your nervous system. And then one day, you vanished emotionally, not physically. That's too obvious, no. Psychologically, you stopped feeding the machine. No reaction, no pleading, no rage, no panic, no performance, just silence. Cold, calculated, unreadable silence. And that silence became louder than every scream they ever heard. Do you understand how terrifying that is? A person yelling is predictable. A person crying is understandable. A person begging is controllable. But a person who suddenly becomes calm after surviving hell, that person becomes dangerous. Because now nobody knows what you're thinking. And unpredictability, that is power. You see, weak people worship predictability because it keeps them emotionally safe. They like labeling people: good guy, bad guy, victim, villain, soft, broken, easy. But you became something they couldn't categorize anymore. That's why they started spiraling, because one day you looked like a saint, and the next day you moved like a psychopath. One day you showed mercy. The next day you cut emotional access like a serial killer, disconnecting life support. One day your eyes looked full of warmth. The next day they looked ancient, empty, dangerous. That contradiction shattered them, because human beings fear what they cannot predict. And you finally understood something most people die without learning. Being understood is overrated. You spent years trying to explain your heart to people committed to misunderstanding you. Pathetic, isn't it? You kept translating your soul into smaller words, so insecure people wouldn't feel threatened by your intensity. You kept dimming yourself so fragile egos could breathe around you. You kept apologizing for your fire, and then pain changed you. Not motivational quote, pain. Not fake social media heartbreak. I'm talking real pain. The kind that rearranges your nervous system. The kind that makes you stare at the ceiling at 3 a.m., wondering if you're becoming a monster, or finally becoming honest. That kind of pain. And that's where the transformation happened. Not publicly, not loudly, silently. See, evolution is never loud at first. The snake sheds its skin in isolation. The wolf heals alone. The demon is born in darkness. You disappeared into yourself. And while they were laughing, while they were gossiping, while they were underestimating you, you were rebuilding your entire psychology in silence. That's what destroyed them. Not revenge, discipline, not attention, detachment, not noise, control. Because once a person masters emotional restraint, they become nearly impossible to manipulate. And manipulators hate that. Oh, they panic when they lose emotional access to you. That's why they suddenly start stalking your page, watching your stories, asking mutual friends about you. Not because they love you, because they can't read you anymore. And when people can't read you, they start projecting their own fears onto you. That's why your silence became a horror movie inside their head. They started wondering, did I lose them? Are they becoming stronger? Do they hate me? Did they finally realize their worth? Are they planning something? Why do they seem so calm? Ha 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 ha. Look at them, breaking themselves apart, trying to decode a person who finally stopped explaining. That's the irony. The quieter you became, the louder their insecurity screamed, because your silence forced them to confront something unbearable. Maybe they weren't as important as they thought. Oh, and ego cannot survive that realization. See, ego is fragile. It survives on reflection. It needs attention the way addicts need dopamine. That's why people provoke reactions. That's why they disrespect boundaries. That's why they test you repeatedly. They're fishing for proof they still matter to you. And when you gave them nothing, no tears, no speeches, no chaos, their ego entered withdrawal. You became the emotional drug they could no longer access. That's why they're obsessed now. Not because you talked louder, because you became unreachable. There's something terrifying about a person who no longer needs validation. A person who can walk away without closure, without applause, without revenge. That kind of person feels supernatural. And let me tell you something even darker. You didn't become cold because you wanted to. You became cold because warmth kept getting weaponized against you. That's the part nobody talks about. People love gentle souls, until those souls develop boundaries. Then suddenly you're different, arrogant, hard to read, too intense. No, you just stopped bleeding in public, that's all. And now they're angry because the version of you they controlled is dead. Good, let it die. Because the new version of you understands something lethal. Mercy without boundaries becomes self-destruction. You can be kind and dangerous, loving and ruthless, calm and catastrophic. That duality is what makes you powerful now. Not fake positivity, not fake darkness. Balance. The angel and demon shaking hands inside the same body. That's why your energy feels heavier now. You've suffered enough to understand pain, but survived enough to stop fearing it. And once a human being stops fearing pain, they become very difficult to control. That's why people feel unsettled around you now. They sense something changed. Your eyes don't chase approval anymore. Your voice doesn't beg to be heard anymore. Your presence doesn't scream for validation anymore. You move slower now, calmer, more precise. Like someone who finally realized chaos is most effective when controlled. That's what terrifies them. Not aggression, precision, because loud people are easy to detect. But silent people are the storms nobody sees forming, and deep down, they know it. They know the old version of you would have exploded emotionally. But this version, This version smiles. This version watches. This version lets people reveal themselves completely before making a move. That psychological patience is horrifying to impulsive people, because impulsive people expose themselves trying to provoke you, and every time you remain calm, they self-destruct harder. You want to know the funniest part? They still think your silence means weakness. Ha 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 ha. No, your silence is restraint. And restraint is terrifying because it implies capability. A lion doesn't roar every second. A sniper doesn't fire every second. A psychopath doesn't reveal every thought. Real power conserves energy. That's why your silence crushed their ego harder than revenge ever could. Because revenge would have proven emotional attachment. But indifference, detachment, growth, oh, that told them something much worse. It told them you no longer revolve around them. And for ego-driven people, that realization feels like death. So let them panic, let them overthink, let them stalk, let them gossip, let them speculate, because while they're wasting energy trying to understand your transformation, you're evolving again, quietly, dangerously, beautifully. And that's the thing they'll never admit out loud. The moment you stopped reacting emotionally, the moment you disappeared into silence, the moment you stopped needing their validation, you became unforgettable. Not louder, not crueler, not more desperate, just untouchable. And nothing destroys fragile egos faster than realizing the person they underestimated learned how to live without them. And now they sit in rooms pretending your name doesn't affect them. But it does. Oh, it does. You can always tell when somebody's ego got shattered by your evolution. They become obsessed with performing indifference. They laugh too loudly when your name comes up. They force fake smiles. They suddenly act unbothered. Meanwhile, their nervous system is collapsing in real time because your silence turned into a mirror. And mirrors are brutal because people don't hate seeing you. They hate seeing themselves reflected in your transformation. Your growth exposed their stagnation. Your discipline exposed their excuses. Your emotional control exposed their addiction to chaos. That's why they started resenting you. Not because you became evil, because you became free. And freedom terrifies people whose entire identity depends on emotional dependency. See, weak minds always need a villain. Someone to blame, someone to drain, someone to manipulate into staying emotionally available. But then, you committed the ultimate betrayal. You healed without permission. Oh, they never expected that. They expected revenge, expected breakdowns, expected emotional paragraphs at 2 a.m. Instead, you disappeared into the shadows and started rebuilding your mind like a war machine. Quiet gym sessions, silent self-discipline, cold late-night thinking, rewiring your habits, rewiring your emotions, rewiring your identity. Nobody saw it happening. That's what makes it legendary. See, loud transformation is usually fake. Real transformation is horrifyingly quiet. A person who announces every move is usually seeking attention. But a person who suffers silently, evolves differently. That person becomes layered, complicated, dangerous, because pain gave you depth. Not fake depth, not aesthetic sadness, real depth, the kind that comes from surviving betrayal without becoming completely heartless. That paradox inside you, that's your superpower now. You know how to love deeply, while also knowing exactly when to emotionally disappear forever. You know how to forgive, while never giving access again. You know how to smile warmly, while carrying enough darkness to mentally destroy anyone who underestimates you. That contradiction makes people uneasy, because human beings are addicted to simplicity. They want clean categories, but you became psychologically uncategorizable, a saint with violent boundaries, a demon with a conscience, a soft soul carrying predator instincts, and people feel that before they even understand it. That's why rooms change when you walk in now. Energy doesn't lie. Broken people can sense when somebody survived something catastrophic internally. Your presence carries aftermath, not weakness. Aftermath. Like a city after a war, still standing, but permanently changed. And the craziest part, most of them still have no idea what really happened to you. They only saw the silence. They never saw the nights you almost lost your mind. They never saw you sitting alone, replaying betrayal until your chest felt hollow. They never saw the rage you swallowed, the tears you buried, the memories you had to amputate emotionally just to survive another morning. No one saw that version of you, which is why they'll never understand this version either, because people only judge visible behavior. They never investigate invisible suffering. That's why they miscalculated you. They thought your kindness meant fragility. Big mistake. Some of the most dangerous people on Earth start out incredibly gentle, until life teaches them what humans are really capable of, until betrayal educates them, until abandonment sharpens them, until pain introduces them to the beast sleeping underneath their empathy. And once that beast wakes up, oh, it doesn't fully go back to sleep. That's what changed your eyes. You've noticed it too, haven't you? That look you have now, calm but heavy, like you know something other people don't, because you do. You know how fake most affection is. You know how quickly loyalty disappears when convenience changes. You know how easily people switch masks depending on what benefits them. But instead of becoming bitter, you became observant. That's evolution. Weak people become hateful after pain. Powerful people become precise. Now you watch patterns instead of words, energy instead of promises, consistency instead of performance, and that level of awareness makes manipulators deeply uncomfortable, because manipulators survive through emotional confusion. But your silence removed confusion. Now you see everything clearly. The fake concern, the subtle disrespect, the strategic affection, the calculated distance. You see all of it now. And what terrifies them most is that you no longer react immediately. That delay, that pause before you respond. Oh, that pause is terrifying, because it means emotion no longer controls your decisions. And once emotion stops controlling somebody, they become unpredictable. That's why your silence destroyed their ego harder than screaming ever could. Screaming would have given them certainty. Silence gave them paranoia. Now they sit there wondering, are they moving on? Are they becoming stronger? Did I lose control? Why do they seem happier without me? Why can't I affect them anymore? Ha 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 ha. Look how quickly confidence collapses when emotional access gets denied. That's all ego ever wanted, by the way. Access, attention, influence, the ability to disturb your peace. And when you quietly reclaimed your peace, their ego starved to death. You became the one thing narcissistic people cannot tolerate. Unavailable, emotionally unavailable, mentally unavailable, spiritually unavailable. Not because you hate them, because you finally chose yourself. And choosing yourself after years of self-abandonment feels almost illegal at first, doesn't it? At first you felt guilty, felt selfish, felt cold. That's because broken people trained you to associate boundaries with cruelty. But boundaries are not cruelty. Boundaries are self-respect, armed with intelligence. And once you learned that, everything changed. Your energy changed. Your posture changed. Your standards changed. Even your silence changed. Because there are two kinds of silence in this world: weak silence and powerful silence. Weak silence is fear. Powerful silence is control. Weak silence waits to be rescued. Powerful silence already rescued itself. That's the silence you carry now, the kind that makes people nervous because they can't tell whether you're healing, mom, or becoming lethal. Truth is, you're becoming both. Because healing doesn't erase darkness. Real healing teaches darkness discipline. That's the difference. Before, your pain controlled you. Now you control your pain. Before, your emotions dragged you everywhere. Now your emotions report to you. That shift alone changes everything. Because the moment a person gains emotional self-control, they stop being easy prey. And predators notice that instantly. That's why certain people disappeared once you stopped reacting emotionally. They were never attached to your soul. They were attached to your vulnerability. There's a difference. One loves your existence. The other loves your emotional accessibility. The second you stopped bleeding publicly, they lost interest. Good. Let garbage remove itself. Your silence filtered your entire reality. Now only genuine energy survives around you. And even then, you still stay observant. Because pain taught you something priceless. Not everybody deserves full access to your heart. Some people only deserve your distance. Some people only deserve your absence. Some people only deserve the memory of who you used to be. That realization hurts at first, but eventually it becomes liberating because you stop trying to save everybody. You stop trying to explain yourself to emotionally blind people. You stop shrinking your intensity to comfort fragile minds. And suddenly, you breathe differently, walk differently, think differently. Like somebody who finally escaped psychological slavery. That's why they can feel the shift even when you say nothing. Your energy became sharper, cleaner, more dangerous, not reckless danger, controlled danger. The kind hidden beneath calm body language and quiet eyes. The kind that doesn't need to announce itself. And that is what shattered their ego completely. Because deep down they realized something horrifying. You no longer need their validation to feel powerful. And once a human being reaches that level internally, they become almost impossible to manipulate again. So now they watch you from a distance, confused, curious, threatened, trying to understand how the same person they once underestimated became emotionally untouchable. But they'll never fully understand it, because they only witnessed the silence. They never witnessed the war that created it. And that war changed your DNA, not biologically, psychologically, spiritually, energetically. You don't come back from certain pain as the same human being. You just don't. Some experiences don't wound you. They rewrite you. And people can feel when somebody has been rewritten by suffering. That's why strangers stare a little longer now. Why fake people act nervous around you. Why weak minds immediately try to joke around your intensity. Your presence exposes things. Because when someone survives internal destruction and still manages to stand upright, they carry a certain frequency, a quiet violence, a controlled chaos, like a wolf sitting perfectly still while the forest panics around it. That's you now. And the funniest part, you didn't even realize your silence was becoming legendary while it was happening. You thought you were just surviving. Meanwhile, your absence was psychologically detonating inside people's minds. Because silence forces imagination to do the talking. And imagination, imagination is crueler than reality. People create entire horror stories trying to explain why you changed. She's bitter. He's broken. They're pretending. They'll come back. They still care. No, you simply woke up. That's all. You woke up to the game. You finally understood most people don't want honesty. They want comfort. They don't want truth. They want emotional convenience. And the second you stopped being emotionally convenient, their ego cracked, because suddenly they had to face the terrifying possibility that maybe, just maybe, they underestimated you completely. See, your old self was easier to digest. The over-explaining version, the forgiving version, the endlessly patient version. That version kept giving people more chances than they deserved. Why? Because you saw the good in everyone. Ha 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 ha. What a beautiful curse that was. You kept looking for loyalty inside people addicted to betrayal. Kept searching for depth inside shallow souls. Kept expecting empathy from emotionally parasitic minds. And every disappointment carved something into you. At first, the pain weakened you. Then it sharpened you. That's evolution. Pain is a sculptor. Weak people let it destroy them. Powerful people let it redesign them. And now, look at you, calm on the surface, but internally, internally you became something terrifying. Not evil. Evil is sloppy. You became aware. That's worse, because awareness changes the way you move through the world. Now you notice tone shifts instantly, micro-expressions, inconsistencies, passive aggression disguised as humor. You notice who disappears when you stop giving energy, who only calls when they need something, who secretly competes with you while pretending to support you. You see all of it now, and that level of perception isolates you sometimes, doesn't it? Because once you see through people, it becomes impossible to unsee them. That's why solitude started feeling safer than fake company. Not because you hate people, because peace became addictive. Real peace, not temporary distraction, not fake happiness. I'm talking about the peace that comes from no longer betraying yourself to keep others comfortable. That peace changes a person. You stopped begging for seats at tables that secretly prayed for your failure. You stopped watering dead connections. You stopped chasing closure from people emotionally incapable of accountability. And with every silent withdrawal, you reclaimed pieces of yourself. That's why your energy feels heavier now. You're carrying less confusion, less desperation, less need. And people notice when somebody no longer needs them emotionally. They notice immediately, because dependency creates power imbalance. The one who needs less controls more. That's why your silence scared them. You accidentally reversed the entire psychological dynamic. Before, they felt superior because they knew how to trigger your emotions. Now they don't even know if they cross your mind anymore. And uncertainty is torture for ego-driven people, especially when they secretly expected you to stay emotionally chained forever. See, your silence wasn't just silence. It was a funeral, the burial of the version of you that tolerated disrespect, the burial of the version that begged to be understood, the burial of the version that kept bleeding for people who enjoyed watching it happen. That version died quietly. No announcement, no dramatic speech, just internal death. And when something dies inside a human being, something else is born. That's the law of transformation. The caterpillar dissolves before becoming the butterfly. Stars explode before creating galaxies. Humans break before evolving. And your breakdown, your breakdown built a creature nobody saw coming. Because beneath all that pain, you discovered restraint. That's the dangerous part. Not rage, restrained rage. Anyone can explode emotionally. But controlling your emotions while fully aware of your power, that's terrifying. That's why people feel intimidated around you now, even when you're quiet. Your silence carries implication, like there's something underneath it, something ancient, something watching, and they're right. Pain made you observant in ways innocence never could. You know what betrayal sounds like before it fully arrives now. You know what fake love feels like before the mask slips. You know when energy changes in a room. That awareness gives you psychological advantage, and people unconsciously sense when they can no longer manipulate somebody. That's why they started calling you different. You are different. Trauma changes operating systems, but here's the paradox. The darkness didn't destroy your heart completely. That's what makes you dangerous in a different way. You still feel deeply. You still care. You still love harder than most people are capable of understanding. But now your love has standards. Now your empathy has boundaries. Now your kindness comes with discernment. And weak people mistake discernment for cruelty because they benefited from your lack of boundaries before. Too bad. Growth is expensive. Everybody can't come with you. Some people were only meant to meet the old version of you, the accessible version, the emotionally available version, the version that answered instantly, forgave instantly, trusted instantly. That person is gone now. And honestly, good. Because that version kept sacrificing itself, trying to save people who enjoyed watching you drown. This version studies before trusting, observes before attaching, detaches before begging. And that shift shattered every ego that thought they permanently owned emotional access to you. You know what really destroyed them? It wasn't your glow-up. It wasn't your success. It wasn't your silence alone. It was the realization that you became happier without their validation. Ooh, that realization burns people alive internally. Because ego survives on importance. People want to believe they left permanent damage on your soul. They want to believe you'll always need them emotionally. But your silence told a completely different story. Your silence said, I survived. I adapted. I evolved. I no longer need permission to become powerful. That message hit harder than revenge ever could. Because revenge still centers the other person. Your evolution erased them from the center entirely. That's why they're obsessed now. Not because they love you. Because they lost psychological control over the version of you they once understood. And humans panic when familiar things become unfamiliar. Especially when that unfamiliarity looks powerful. Now they watch from afar, trying to decode your transformation. But they can't, because transformation that happens in darkness creates a different kind of human. A quieter human, a deeper human, a more dangerous human. Somebody who learned that silence is not emptiness, it's strategy. And strategy terrifies emotional people, because emotional people expose themselves impulsively. But you learned patience. You learned timing. You learned that the most devastating move is often no move at all. That's mastery. Anybody can scream, anybody can threaten, anybody can create noise. But standing there completely calm while people self-destruct around you psychologically, oh, that takes evolution, that takes pain, that takes surviving enough betrayal to finally understand one brutal truth. The strongest person in the room is usually the one who no longer needs to prove anything.